Imagine being told that the ultimate secret to peace of mind, like the absolute highest state of human existence, boils down to this.
Yeah, this is good.
If everyone in the room suddenly takes off their clothes, you should immediately do the exact same thing.
Yeah, just right then and there.
Today, we are exploring a deeply, deeply unconventional philosophy. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
So, whether you're listening to this while feeling, completely crushed by the sheer weight of modern information overload,
Which is pretty much all of us right now.
right, exactly, or maybe you're just incredibly curious about like alternative mental frameworks.
Mhm.
Our mission today is to challenge some of your most fundamental default settings.
We are looking at a text from 2013 by an author named Suefeng,
Okay.
and it's titled A Few Tips for Entering an Ethereal State.
An ethereal state.
Yeah, or an empty state. And the core argument here is that to elevate what he calls your vibrational frequency, you have to first reach this empty state of mind.
Right. And before you hear, vibrational frequency and think we're diving into like science fiction or some vague mysticism,
Yeah,
let's ground that for a second.
definitely.
Think of frequency here as your mental bandwidth.
That's a great way to put it.
Because when you're bogged down by anxiety or, constantly calculating your next move or stressing over how people perceive you, your frequency is low. It's muddy.
Your bandwidth is totally maxed out.
Right. You have too many tabs open.
Yeah.
But when you are empty, you suddenly have the bandwidth to perceive reality clearly.
And the beauty of this text is that the author actually provides a deeply practical, though sometimes completely paradoxical roadmap to actually achieve this.
Okay, so let's unpack this roadmap.
Well, the foundation of it starts with a pretty ruthless inventory of what is currently eating up your bandwidth.
The open tabs.
Exactly. The author points out that before you can elevate your mind, you have to stop volunteering to carry so much weight.
Right,
So his first mandate is basically to own nothing.
which sounds intense.
It is. And he doesn't just mean material possessions like a car or a house. He means abstract things too. Money, power, status.
Because owning those things.
It inevitably leads to a state of perpetual anxiety,
Yeah.
just this constant fear of loss.
You're probably listening right now, maybe driving to work or doing the dishes, thinking, look, I have a mortgage, I have a car payment. I can't just literally own nothing.
Right. I mean, we live in the real world.
Yeah, but it seems like he's getting at something much deeper than just, selling all your earthly possessions and moving to the woods.
He definitely is. It's more about the psychological trap of ownership.
Okay.
He argues that owning, the very concept of owning a rigid ego, is actually what causes the most damage.
Oh, wow. The ego as a liability.
The ultimate liability. It's really about recognizing causality. Attachments create this predictable negative emotional chain reaction.
How so?
Well, if you own property, your baseline state just becomes a fear of losing it.
Right, you're always guarding it.
Right. Exactly. And if you hold on to a rigid identity or this fierce sense of your own quote-unquote rights, you feel compelled to defend them the second someone challenges you.
So any slight is a massive threat.
Yeah. The empty state begins when you cut off that chain reaction at the source by just dropping the attachment altogether.
It's like we are carrying around this massive, heavy backpack
And that's a good analogy.
filled with our stuff, our titles, our egos. And the author isn't just saying, hey, lighten the load a bit. He's saying, drop the entire backpack.
Yes. Or, to use your computer analogy from earlier, it's like the ego is an app running in the background of your smartphone.
Just constantly draining the battery,
Exactly. You might not be actively looking at the app, but it's constantly searching for a signal.
scanning the environment for validation.
Or scanning for threats to your identity. And while it's running that background scan, it is draining your mental battery to absolute zero.
So he's not just telling us to close a few tabs.
No, he's telling us to delete the operating system.
Delete the OS entirely. Man. And deleting that operating system means tackling our desires head on, right?
Yeah, that's the seventh tip. The text argues that having no desires gives you immense strength.
Which sounds completely backwards to how we're raised.
Totally. But he says having no demands gives you absolute peace. Because desires actually twist your true nature.
Well, that makes sense. Think about how people behave when they desperately want a promotion.
Or when they crave someone's affection, they become subservient.
Yeah, they act cautiously, they modify their personality.
They compromise their values just to get what they want.
Right, they're no longer themselves. They're just a vehicle for their craving.
Which is a very muddy, low-frequency state.
He uses this brilliant image to counter that craving, actually. He
Mm.
says you have to let things happen naturally, like waiting for a melon to ripen and fall off the vine on its own.
I love that imagery.
Right. Don't try to force it. Don't look for shortcuts to grab the melon before it's ready.
Because in our culture, we are practically bred to look for the hack.
Oh, absolutely. We want the legal loophole, the life hack, the get-rich-quick scheme to get ahead overnight.
But forcing the melon off the vine just leaves you with bitter fruit. And honestly, a lot of exhausted energy.
Okay, so if we're no longer defining ourselves by what we own,
Right.
and we're no longer actively wrestling the universe to fulfill our desires,
Hmm.
how do we handle the actual physical reality of the situations we find ourselves in?
Well, this brings us to how the author believes we should navigate destiny,
Okay.
which is his second and third tips. He states, you must trust that God, or the Tao, will arrange things perfectly.
And let's clarify the Tao for a second, just so we don't get lost in, like, complex theology here.
Sure.
You can basically think of the Tao as the underlying current of reality, the fundamental flow of the universe.
Exactly, just the natural order of things. So the instruction is that whatever your current situation is, you face it calmly.
Calmly.
Yes. You do not escape, you do not complain, and perhaps most surprisingly, you do not even blindly hope for better things to come.
Wait, really? No hoping.
No hoping, you simply trust the current. Because the people and events that come into your life aren't accidents.
Right, they're part of the flow.
He calls them a programmed arrangement of fate. The rule he lays out is very strict here. He says when fate comes, dissolve it. When it leaves, forget it.
Wow.
You are to feel absolutely no regret over the past.
Okay, I have to push back here.
I figured you might.
Because when I read that, my modern sensibilities just flared up with friction.
Oh, same here initially.
If I'm in an objectively terrible situation, say a completely toxic work environment with an abusive boss,
Right, a really bad scenario.
is the author seriously saying I shouldn't try to escape or fight for something better?
Yeah.
Isn't that just, passive resignation? It feels like giving up.
I will admit, when I first read his mandate to feel absolutely no regret and to never attempt to escape, I thought it sounded almost sociopathic.
Right. It feels wrong.
It directly attacks our instinct for self-preservation.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating here is when you really dig into his logic, we often conflate acceptance with giving up.
Okay, explain that.
The author isn't advocating for being a helpless victim. He is advocating for radical acceptance.
Radical acceptance.
Think about how much energy you spend not just dealing with a bad situation, but wishing the situation wasn't happening in the first place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The suffering isn't just the toxic boss. It's the constant internal monologue of, why is this happening to me?
Exactly. This is so unfair. I wish I had taken that other job offer.
That mental loop is exhausting.
Fighting reality is the ultimate waste of energy. The author is asking you for clear-eyed calmness.
So you face the situation without the complaints.
Right. Without the muddying effects of complaining or desperate, ungrounded daydreaming about a magical future.
You just deal with the facts.
Yes. You act from a place of clarity. You deal with the facts that are actually in front of you rather than exhausting yourself fighting the mere fact that the situation exists.
Okay, so to put an analogy to it,
Yeah.
it's not that you sit in a burning building and say, oh, well, the Dao has arranged this fire. I guess I'll just burn.
No, not at all.
It's that you calmly identify the exit and you walk out of the burning building without spending 20 minutes screaming at the flames for being hot.
That is a perfect analogy.
You don't complain about the smoke. You just navigate it.
You dissolve the fate when it comes without all the emotional theatrics that drain your ethereal state.
Right, the theatrics drain the battery.
Exactly. But once you learn to stop fighting the fire with your ego, you run into the next major hurdle.
Which is?
Other people. Because people are usually the ones lighting the fires.
True.
And how we interact with society without losing this hard-won ethereal calm is where the author's advice becomes incredibly specific.
This circles back to that shocking image I mentioned at the very beginning of our deep dive.
The naked one.
Yes. The author says you must maintain total harmony with the whole. His instruction is to blend in perfectly with your environment.
Tip number 4.
Right. If everyone else falls down, you fall down. If they start playing, you play. And literally, he says, if everyone is naked, you be naked.
It's such a striking visual.
Do not pretend to be aloof, and do not stand out like a crane among a flock of chickens.
Which completely flips Western individualism on its head.
Oh, entirely. We are constantly conditioned to stand out.
Right. To build a personal brand. To be the thought leader who doesn't follow the crowd.
But he's saying standing out is bad.
He views standing out as a massive vulnerability. And this ties into tip number 8, which is a core concept of his social philosophy, the idea of energy battles.
Energy battles.
Yes. He states that all human conflicts, all contradictions, and all struggles are fundamentally battles for energy.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The mechanics of an energy battle make so much sense when you think about the last pointless argument you had.
Oh, like on the internet.
Exactly. Think about a time someone picked a fight with you over something trivial in a comment section.
They didn't actually care about the truth of the matter.
Not at all. They wanted to dominate the interaction. They wanted to provoke a reaction.
They wanted to extract your energy to feed their own ego.
Yes. And the author says you must stay entirely out of these battles.
Do not fight for material energy and do not fight for spiritual energy.
Because getting defensive or trying to prove you're the smartest person in the room.
Or trying to demonstrate that you are more morally pure than everyone else, that makes your mind turbid.
It clouds the water.
It ruins the empty state completely.
But wait, why is the solution to take off your clothes if everyone else does? If I don't want to get into an energy battle, shouldn't I just walk away from the naked people?
It's a fair question, but this raises an important point about the nature of social friction. Why do we usually want to stand out or walk away in disgust?
To prove you're superior.
Exactly. To show we are above the fray. But acting superior, or remaining aloof while everyone else engages in something, invites resentment.
Oh, I see.
It invites challenges from the group. You become the crane among the chickens, and the chickens are going to start pecking at you.
So by perfectly mirroring the environment.
By sitting when they sit and laughing when they laugh, you become frictionless.
Frictionless.
Yes, you offer absolutely no surface area for an energy battle to take place.
It's like being a social chameleon. But instead of doing it out of insecurity or like a desperate need to fit in, you are doing it with a force field.
That's a really cool way to look at it.
You are intentionally making yourself invisible to drama. You're opting out of the game entirely by playing it perfectly on the surface.
And because you are no longer draining your battery by fighting with people or desperately trying to siphon energy off of them through validation, you suddenly have a surplus of bandwidth.
Okay, so what do you do with that surplus?
The author suggests you use this to commune alone with heaven and earth.
Right.
You absorb the universe's energy, the essence of the natural world around you, instead of feeding off the toxic zero-sum game of human conflict.
Okay, so if I apply all this, I've dropped my ego app. I've radically accepted that the building's on fire without complaining.
Yep.
And I am a frictionless chameleon moving through society without ever arguing.
Sounds pretty good, right?
It sounds incredibly peaceful, but it also kind of creates a vacuum.
What do you mean?
What do you actually do all day? If I strip away my ego and my desires to scheme and climb the corporate ladder, my modern brain just wants to fill that empty void with doom scrolling or binge watching.
Right. Nature abhors a vacuum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How does he suggest we actually occupy our time?
Well, the author is surprisingly grounded when it comes to daily action. This is tips 5 and 6.
Okay.
The ethereal state is not about sitting in a cave staring at a wall until you waste away. He provides a very clear routine. Calculate less, play more.
Calculate less, like stop scheming.
Explicitly, yes. Stop trying to guess other people's intentions. We spend so much time assuming people have secret plots against us or that they are inherently bad.
Or just overanalyzing a text message for 3 hours.
Exactly. He points out that the reality of a situation is often completely different from our anxious, convoluted assumptions.
And instead of that mental calculation, he says we should play.
Yes. Write a small poem, listen to music, dance.
Play an instrument, walk by the river.
Yes.
Just exist in a state of lighthearted engagement.
But, and this is crucial, he balances that play with a very strict mandate for labor.
Right. Tip 6. Labor creates a pure mind.
He argues that you have to work and contribute every single day. You cannot waste your days purely in enjoyment.
So no endless doom scrolling on the couch.
No. You have to make sure you are useful to the people around you, and most importantly, that you owe nothing to anyone.
Earning your keep.
Earning your keep brings a deep, unshakable peace of mind.
Let's dig into the why of that for a second. Why does labor create a pure mind?
It's really interesting when you look at it through a modern lens.
Yeah, because we know from modern psychology about the default mode network in the brain.
The DMN.
Right. That's the network that lights up when we are idle, and it's responsible for daydreaming, overthinking, and a lot of our anxiety.
It's the scheming network.
Exactly. When you're engaged in physical labor, say gardening or chopping wood or fixing a sink, You force your brain out of the abstract and into physical sensory reality.
You're anchored.
You literally cannot plot revenge on your coworker if you are actively trying not to cut your finger off while chopping a carrot.
That is the exact mechanism at play. Labor anchors you to the physical world, preventing the mind from floating away into anxious delusions.
Right.
Meanwhile, play keeps your spirit light so the labor doesn't grind you down into bitterness.
They balance each other out.
Together, they occupy the mind completely, starving the ego of the idle time it needs to start calculating again.
It creates this beautiful, profound paradox for the listener, really.
Oh, so?
On one hand, you are totally detached from the world. You own nothing, your ego is deleted, you aren't fighting for status.
Right.
But at the exact same time, your hands are literally deep in the dirt gardening, and you're sweating every day to be a useful, contributing neighbor.
You're fully involved.
You are profoundly disconnected from the petty drama of society, but intimately, physically connected to the mechanics of daily life.
And that paradox is the secret engine of the ethereal state. It proves that emptiness is not a void. It is an active state of high functionality.
Which brings us to the end goal here.
Yes. The ultimate vision the author has for someone who actually masters these principles. He describes the final destination as a state of doing nothing, yet doing everything.
Doing nothing, yet doing everything. How does that actually manifest?
Well, in this state, your capabilities expand dramatically because you are no longer limited by your own rigid identity.
Because the backpack is gone.
Exactly. He uses some really poetic language here, saying you become capable of reaching the highest heavens or hiding without leaving a single trace.
Oh, wow.
You achieve infinite adaptability. He calls this being full channel. You can be round or square, long or short, hard or soft, visible or hidden.
Being full channel. It's like being a universal adapter.
That's exactly.
You can plug into any situation, any dynamic without short-circuiting.
Because you have no ego to defend, no desires twisting your actions, and no internal friction. You can perfectly mold to whatever the universe requires of you in any given microsecond.
You can just flow.
You can instantly react appropriately to any environment. You can be anything precisely because you have accepted being nothing. It is the ultimate freedom from yourself.
Which really makes you view your own daily life through a completely different, almost glaringly harsh lens.
It really does.
Think back to that chaotic morning mental load we all just accept as normal. The text talks about avoiding energy battles, letting go of desires, and blending in perfectly so you can absorb cosmic energy instead of human drama.
Right.
But think about our modern world right now. You look at the attention economy, social media algorithms, the 24-hour outrage news cycle.
It's nonstop.
They aren't just accidental distractions. They are literally meticulously designed by thousands of supercomputers to poke your ego.
They feed on the energy battles.
Exactly. They are built to make you want to stand out.
Yeah.
They manufacture desires for things you don't need, and they drag you kicking and screaming into a never-ending, exhausting battle for your mental energy.
Every app on your phone is basically an energy vampire.
So it leaves you with this to mull over as you go about the rest of your day, in a world that is practically engineered to prevent it. A world that profits off your constant anxiety and attachment.
Yeah.
Is reaching this ethereal state just a nice philosophical, personal wellness goal? Or is achieving this kind of absolute emptiness actually the ultimate form of modern rebellion?